2 years ago, on the 100 block of Cap Street in San Francisco's Mission District, just about everyone was frustrated. Residents, business owners, and the homeless adults who dropped in at the Mission Neighborhood Resource Center all agreed that the street was dirty and that they felt unsafe. Despite their shared concerns, there were some doubts that homeless residents and property owners could come together. After all, as Veronica Mahano, a peer advocate at the Resource Center, says, the homeless are not the most welcome community in the world. But against all odds, Cap Street's reluctant neighbors grew to be staunch allies, working together to turn their problems into a powerful tool for transforming lives and unifying the community. Their simple but ingenious solution was a paid internship for homeless men that focused on cleaning up the street. The 8-week program administered by the Resource Center and headed by Veronica, known affectionately as Vero Verde, or Green Vero, would give the men a crash course in leadership while getting the block swept and cleaned 3 times a week. The program just started in November 2006, but already the results have been dramatic. Because of the efforts of Los Líderes de la Calle Cap, or the leaders of Cap Street, the street is safer and healthier, and there is a strong sense of community pride on the block. One of the biggest changes has been the neighbors' perceptions of the homeless community. One business owner told me she never thought she would see homeless people as part of her neighborhood, says Vero. But now she considers our block a big, happy family, and she loves it here. I think sometimes you just need to know someone's name to think differently about them. Now the community is energized and working together to make other improvements. They've campaigned to enhance lighting. They've campaigned to get the street periodically steam cleaned. They have organized larger community cleanups with neighbors from the surrounding North Mission area and even with local school children. At each cleanup event, there is a little ceremony to recognize the leadership of Vero Verde and Los Líderes de la Calle Cap. This acknowledgement is meaningful for program intern Peter Jacobson. I've never felt like part of something except in prison, he says. This internship gives me a feeling of belonging. For program graduate Luis Para, it has been life-changing. Para, homeless for more than a year while he struggled with alcoholism, is clean and sober now, and currently enrolled in a carpentry class at City College. He is hoping to be working it again soon. It just gave me a little extra push, he says.
When teacher Edward Arias arrived for his first day at San Francisco Cesar Chavez Elementary, he saw the school's overgrown, unused garden beds full of litter and homeless encampments, and thought to himself, this has to change. It bugged me that it looked like no one cared about the place, he says, and this was the message the kids and parents got as they walked by every day. Arias also knew how useful a tended garden could be in teaching his mostly Spanish-speaking students language, science, and a great host of valuable skills like leadership and teamwork. In the garden, a teacher can cover a lot of bases all at once, says Arias. It's a living science lab and a great textbook. There's so much vocabulary in doing something like categorizing soil components. So Arias, a former Marine, was determined to retake the garden with the help of his young students. Arias raised money to support the project, writing grants and seeking donations. He also enlisted the help of parents to make food to sell at a special fundraising event, now held annually, that he dubbed Cesar Chavez Birthday, an Earth Day celebration. In no time, he and the students had transformed the front of the school into a green oasis. Now, the Garden Munchies program is in its 4th year and has grown to include an edible garden. Arias' 3rd graders grow themed garden plots like the pizza bed, the tea party bed, and the salsa bed, and cook up classroom snacks with their harvests. The parents love it, says Arias. Lots of the parents grew up in agricultural areas of Mexico and Central America. But here in the U.S., they're raising their children in crowded apartments with no yards. So this is really this generation's only hands in the dirt experience. Arias says the students work hard watering, weeding, and maintaining the compost every week because it's so much fun. They love to find bugs and other critters. A favorite class activity is to raise snails. Arias knows that these real-world experience with living things will make these children more aware of environmental issues in the future. They're going to remember these moments in the garden, he says. It will be in their blood. In my own Eddie way, this is my contribution to the future of the planet.
I planted some seeds into the dirt. I planted some seeds into the dirt. I planted some seeds, now I have string beans. Oh, I planted some seeds into the dirt. I snapped my beans and cooked a casserole. I snapped my beans and I cooked a casserole. I snapped them and I
San Francisco's Chinatown is the second most densely populated neighborhood in the United States. And while tourists throng the main thoroughfares, locals navigate this bustling area via the more than 40 alleyways that crisscross it. Chinatown's alleyways are home to thousands of families and seniors living in tightly packed single-room occupancy housing. Every inch of space is precious around here, says Norman Fong of the Chinatown Community Development Center. Our alleyways are our open space. 16 years ago, the alleyways were also a mess. The city didn't officially recognize them as streets, so never cleaned them. Making things worse was the fact that no one in the neighborhood knew this. The garbage piled up and never moved. It was an environmental disaster, says Fong. But he had an idea. As a veteran youth program leader, Fong saw an opportunity for young people to be a part of the solution. He recruited 8 teens from Galileo High School to tour the media through the alleys while they graded their cleanliness. Stories ran in local papers and people began to talk about the issue. But it was the teenagers that took charge. Since 1991, young people from Chinatown and beyond have been at the helm of the Adopt an Alleyway youth program. Governed and operated entirely by youth, this program has turned the situation in the alleys entirely around. Teens regularly monitor the environment, lead cleanup efforts, and remove graffiti. But the effort doesn't stop at street level. The youth visit with seniors living in single-room occupancy housing and even care for small children while parents meet to discuss community issues. 6 years ago, the youth also launched a weekend tour program for the public called Chinatown Alleyway Tours in order to share the fascinating history of the area and to make people aware of the current issues that face the community. Thousands of people have taken the tour. The youth involved wouldn't dream of spending their weekends doing anything else. Doing this is a way to understand yourself and where you come from, says Timothy Ho, a graduate of the program, now working as one of its coordinators. Co-worker and fellow graduate Rosa Wong Chi agrees. If you look in the San Francisco Unified School District history books, you won't find much about Chinatown and the Asian community, she says. I grew up in one of these alleyways and didn't know anything at all about Chinatown, but because of the program, I've learned about myself, my community, its issues and history, and I care so much about it now. I've moved to a different neighborhood, but Chinatown is always going to be home.
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California.
5 years ago, a few flowers, collard greens, and peanuts planted on a median strip on the 1700 block of Casada Avenue in San Francisco's Bayview Hunters Point neighborhood started a quiet revolution that would transform a troubled street into a loving community. The block had seen better times in the neighborhood's vibrant past, but in the 1990s, drug dealing and violent crime became part of daily life. Residents were isolated and fearful. And then, one by one, they started to notice two retired neighbors, Carl Page and Annette Smith, weeding, digging, and planting a piece of the median strip that runs the length of the block. Soon, plants were cropping up everywhere. One of the most beautiful moments of my life, says resident and organizer Jeffrey Betcher, was the day I came home to find a little strip of dirt beside my house, tilled and planted, a surprise gift from my neighbors. Suddenly, neighbors drifted out from behind their closed doors to chat, get to know each other, and help out with the gardening. The flowers gave us something other than the problems to talk about, says Betcher. They organized a community meeting to outline specific hopes and plans for the avenue. Now, everyone in this diverse group of longtime residents and neighborhood newcomers is on a first-name basis. 5 years later, the all-volunteer resident members of the Casada Gardens Initiative see their hopes and plans becoming real. The award-winning group is a powerful force in the area, working to bring their grassroots blend of community building and beautification to other blocks. Their projects include a planting a food-producing garden up the hill from the Casada Avenue, partnering with the University of San Francisco on an urban farming initiative, creating public art projects and a neighborhood history archive, fostering youth education, and more. Group leader James Ross says he never could have predicted the deep sense of connection and belonging he now feels here in the neighborhood. In the 80s, I was just hanging out like everyone else around here, he says. I didn't even think about what home meant. But it's amazing what a few years and a handful of people can do. And to think you can change so much with just one simple thing, knocking on the door and meeting your neighbor.
This land is your land. This land is my